everyone. My name is Amrita Bhatnaga. I am from AKGEC college. Today I am going to explain a good topic of the software engineering, requirement engineering and elicitation. These are all are the outlines: requirement engineering process, software requirements and types of requirements, requirement elicitation, interviews, brainstorming, fast, quality function deployment and use cases diagram. So, in this lecture we will understand what is the meaning of requirement engineering and why we use requirement engineering. After that I will explain the requirement elicitation process. Firstly, we should understand what is the meaning of requirement engineering. So, requirement engineering is a process by which we can gather the information from a particular organization for a particular project. The process of finding out, analyzing, documenting and checking these services and constraints called requirement engineering. Requirement engineering produces one large document written in a natural language, contains a description of what the system will do without how it will do. So, requirement engineering and requirement gathering is a first step of the SDLC process where we find out the relevant information related to the project. Fine, we will gather all the information from the employee or user of the organization and then we will collect it and we will document it by the help of requirement engineering. The input to requirement engineering is the problem statement prepared by the customer, and in the output we will get the SRS document which is prepared by the developer. So, this is a very important steps for the developer, where developer will understand all the requirements of the project. Now, what are the different types of requirement? There can be different type of requirement. That's why it is very important to find out this requirement and categorize it. First one, there can be user requirement, system requirement, functional requirement, non-functional requirement and domain requirement. Now, the user requirement, first one we will understand what is the meaning of user requirement. User requirements are those requirements which have some different type of functionality. For example, if a user is an administrator, that's why this user is a different or special user from the regular user. So, there can be different type of user and the requirement will be different for the each and every user. So, we should understand what type of users we have and what are the different types of users. Second is the system requirement. In the system requirement, we will see what type of system we require, what is the architecture of the system, what are the hardware, software component required for the project. So, in this case, we will see all the aspects of your project and what are the hardware and software requirement for this project technically. Okay. Now, next is the functional requirement. In the functional requirement, we will see all the functionality of the project. What are the functions should be provided in the project. So, this is the main requirement of the project. And the non-functional requirement. The functional requirement are those requirements which can be seen in the project. For example, login page, registration is a functional requirement. But non-functional requirement are those requirements which are very useful, but it cannot be seen directly. For you can say these are the indirect requirements. For example, reliability, response time, storage requirement. So, if a project has all the functionality, but it is hang many time or the speed of the project is not good or software is not good, then this is a very big drawback in the project. So, non-functional requirements are those requirements where we will see all the reliability, response time and storage requirement type of requirements. So, these all are the very important requirements in the software engineering. Next, last one is the domain requirement. Actually, the project can be of different domain. For example, library management, airlines reservation, railway reservation. So, these all are the different domains and we have different requirements for each and every domain. Fine. So, there can be different requirements. So, we should have requirement gathering for a particular domain which we are going to make the project. So, this requirement can be different for in different domains. Fine. Now, Requirement engineering process. So we have already seen that what is the meaning of requirement engineering. Requirement engineering to find out all the requirement for the project from the users or for the from the organization. And then we have seen that what are the different types of requirement we can have. Now next is the requirement engineering process, where we have 4 steps. First one is the requirement elicitation. In the requirement elicitation is a main steps in the requirement engineering, where we will see all the how we can collect the information from the users or from the customer. Fine. And requirement analysis, then we will see that which requirements are good, which requirements are not required, which are we can remove this requirement. So we will require some analysis on the requirements also. Next is the requirement documentation, where we will prepare document on the requirements. Fine. Next is the requirement review. After preparing the document for the SRS, we will prepare the SRS, software requirement specification, after the software engineering. Then we will see and check, we will review all the documents, is it correct or not, that is requirement review. So you can see this is the diagram for the requirement engineering. You can see here, in this case, we have problem statement here. We have problem statement, and requirement engineering is a process. In this requirement problem statement is going to as a input into the requirement engineering, and we will find out the SRS here. So we can see that the input of this requirement engineering is your problem statement and output is your SRS. Fine. And these all are the steps for the requirement engineering: requirement elicitation, requirement analysis, requirement documentation, requirement review. These all are the requirement steps. Now next, now we will understand each and every steps of the requirement engineering, and then we will see requirement elicitation in detail. Requirement elicitation क्या है? Or what is the requirement elicitation? Known as gathering of requirement. Here requirements are identified with the help of customer and existing system process if they are available. So we have already discussed it. Requirement elicitation means to gather the information or requirement from the customer or existing system, so that we can renew it, or we can make good project or a useful project. So if the requirement analysis is not proper, then we cannot make a good project or a useful project which can be useful for the customer. Fine. Requirement analysis. Now the question is, what is a requirement analysis? In the requirement analysis, we will analyze all the requirement which we have collected in the phase of requirement elicitation. So if there is any defect, there is an inconsistencies, then we will find out this defects in the requirement analysis. Now next is the requirement document. This is the end product of the requirement elicitation and analysis. Documentation is very important, as it will be the foundation of the design of the software, and documentation is also known as SRS. So for main thing here, next is the requirement documentation. Documentation is very important process, because now we have collected all the information, or all the requirement analysis already we have done, and now we have to write a document which is known as a software requirement specification, and this document will have all the functional and non-functional requirement of the project. Fine. Then this SRS will be used for the all over the project to create a good or a systematic project. Fine. This so that we can say that requirement documentation is very important step in the requirement engineering process, and the output of this requirement documentation is SRS, software requirement specification. Now next is the requirement review. When developer prepare the SRS for a project, then it will be reviewed by the different team members of the project, and after the verification and analysis part, this document will be finalized, and then we will have a final SRS here. So we can say that software engineering process by which we can find out, or we can create a document which is very important for the project, SRS. SRS for software requirement specification, which is used all over the project. Okay, this is you can say this is the agreement between the developer and the customer. These requirements will be developed by the developer to the customer at the time of delivery or deployment of the project. Okay, so this is a very important part of the requirement engineering. Now we will see requirement elicitation in detail. Now, what is the meaning of elicitation? Sometimes called requirement elicitation or requirement discovery. Known as gathering of requirement, here requirements are identified with the help of customer and existing system processes if they are available. Requirement elicitation is most difficult, perfect, most critical, most error prone and most communication intensive of the software development. So, we can say software requirement elicitation is a most difficult part of our project, because it is very difficult to find out the information from the other organization, other users and customer what they want. So, if we do not understand the what a customer wants, then there will be the project which will be create is not useful for the customer, which is not perfect. So, requirement analysis is a main part, or requirement elicitation is a main part of your project. The elicitation is a very difficult, but there are many techniques for the requirement elicitation we can use, by which we can find out the information, proper or useful information for the users, or different type of users and different type of customers. Or there can be we can find out the requirement from the previous system also, if there is any existing system is will be there. Now, it involves technical staff working with customers to find out about the application domain, the services that the system should provide and system's operational constraints. May involve in the requirement elicitation, we can involve end users, managers, engineers, trade unions, domain expert, all the stakeholders we can involve in the requirement elicitation to find out the information for the project. Fine. Now, there are many techniques. These all are the techniques for the requirement elicitation we have. First one is your interviews, second one is your brainstorming, third is felicitated application specification technique, next is the quality function deployment, and fifth one is the use case approach. Fine. So, firstly we will see there what is the meaning of interviews and why we use these interviews. Okay, the first method is the interviews. After receiving the problem statement from the customer, the first step is to arrange a meeting with the customer. During the meeting or interview, both the parties would like to understand each other. The objective of conducting an interview is to understand the customer's expectation from the software. Okay, so firstly we will start our requirement elicitation by the help of interviews. We will when we have a problem statement, we will talk to the customer and we will find out his expectation about the project. So, there can be different type of structure or formal interviews we can have. We can have some questionnaire, or also we can survey forms also we can have, so that we can find out the all information about the project. Now, these all are selection of the stakeholders, that is depend on the development team which type of stakeholders they will select for the interviews. For example, there can be entry level or very user level persons will be there. Can be there, and middle level stakeholders can be there, managers can be there, decision makers can be there, or users of the software can be there. So, there can be different levels of the software software users we can use, we can call them for the interviews. It depends on your requirement or the development team. So, this is the first strategy to find out the information from the users or customers by the help of interviews, conducting interviews. Now, next is the brainstorming session. So, in this case, again this is like a group discussion. We will have different ideas, and we will give creative thinking will be there. So, if there is any idea, we will note down it and we will find out all the requirement by the help of this discussions. Right. So in the brainstorming system, we will have selected the customers and users team, and we have brainstorming sessions with them, and we noted down all the requirement which were discussed in the brainstorming sessions, and we will write down all the things which we have discussed, and then finalize the what are the main requirement or basic requirement for the project. So this is another technique for the requirement elicitation. Now, next is a felicitated application specification technique. Its objective is to bridge the expectation gap, the difference between what the developers think they are supposed to build and what customer think they are going to get. A team-oriented approach is developed for requirements gathering, and each attendee is asked to make a list of objects that are. So again, this is a process by which we can find out the requirement of the customer. We will have a meeting where we give the list, give the task to the each attendee to make the list of objects which is required for the project. Part of the environment that surrounds the system, produced by the system, used by the system. So each participant will prepare here a list of the important objects or important requirement which is required for the project. Then we will summarize all the list by the help of developer. We will summarize all the list and remove the redundant requirements, and we will prepare a list of all the requirements. So this is a technique by which we will find out the customer's point of view or customer's basic requirements from the by the help of this technique. So this is again a very useful technique. This is known as a felicitated application specification technique. Next is the quality function deployment. Now, quality function deployment, in this case, we will find out what is important for the customer. Okay, there can be many type of requirement, but there can be some important requirement which should be fulfilled firstly, and this will be communicated by the customer only. Which requirements is higher priority and which requirement is lower priority. We will ask to the customer to give the rating or some categorization of the requirement, so that it will be easy for the developer to find out which are the high priority requirements. So there can be different type of requirements which we have. So normal requirements, expected requirement, exciting requirement. So now the customer will categorize or give the rating to the each and every requirement, which requirement early required by the customer, which requirement can be given to the customer in the next version, or after the full module will be built, then this requirement can be given. So now the developer can understand which are the main requirements and he can focus on which requirements. This is known as a quality function deployment. Here customer will give the idea about the important requirements and some normal requirements. So in this category we have categorized the requirements, right? This is the quality function deployment. Next is the use case approach. In this case, we will create a use case here. So you can see here diagram for the use case. क्या होता है? What is the use case? Use case should not be used to capture all the details of the system. So use case is a diagram by which we can find out the requirement. We will find out which requirements we needed in our project. So we will design this use case diagram. So we have an example of the result management system. So you can see here, this is the use case for the result management system. You can see here, and these all are the actors. This is known as an actor who will use the system, and in this diagram these all are the use cases. Use cases mean the functionality which we should have in our system. So which you can see here, this is the use case diagram for the result management system. So in the result management system there can be different functionality. So for example, maintain student details, maintain subject details, maintain result details, log in, generate result reports, view results. These all are the main functionality of the result management system. Now you can see here, these all are the users or actors of the system. You can see here there are data entry operator which can deal these functions like login, maintain result, maintain subject details, maintain student details. So this data entry operator will deal with these type of functionality. And the next one is the administrator or DR, and this administrator will be deal with the login, the generate result report and view results. Fine. And a student and teacher will deal with the view results only. So we have these three type of users here, which is known as an actor here, and these all are the functions. So by the help of making use case, we can find out the requirement, basic requirement of our project, which functionality we should have, which user wants which functionality, which type of users will use this functionality. So by the help of use case, we can find out all these things. So these all are the 5 techniques of the requirement elicitation. Okay, next techniques will be discussed in the next lecture.